lose 5 million kids per year before the age of 5, 300,000 mothers in childbirth every year. Tragic facts that we've somehow come to accept.
We are afraid that this human man-made crisis would snowball the country into a larger epidemic than the corona is what I fear.
COVID now really scares us, and we are taking massive and drastic measures now that may actually make those regular mortalities worse.
I feel like there's a kind of a fever. Lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. But we are aware that the structures in Africa will not support such kind of lockdowns.
Coronavirus spreads through movement of people on high-speed rail around China, then on airline routes around the world. Lockdowns forcing people to stay at home are supposed to stop people moving. But in low-income countries, the opposite has happened. In Africa and India, 80% of people work informally, earning from hand to mouth. Hungry people will move to find food for themselves and their children. The mass migrations in India from cities will spread the epidemic. The same could happen in Africa.
Believe me, that will be our immediate reaction, to pack up and go back home to the villages. Because at least back in the village, you can go to the farm, to the field, and you'll pick up some vegetables and cook them.
This threatens the elderly, most of whom live in the villages.
If you're a slum dweller in a poor city, you don't have soap and water to wash your hands in your community or let alone at home, and you're all cramped into one room. I think then we're missing some of the ingredients to slow transmission of the virus.
Lockdowns in the developed world are designed to ensure sufficient intensive care beds and ventilators. But in most African hospitals, the only ventilators are those found on the ceilings.
The risk of lethal consequences of COVID-19 goes up sharply with age, especially after the age of about 65. Only 3% of Africans make it to the age of 65. In Europe, the median age is 42. Africa is by far the world's youngest continent, with a median age of just 18.
India has 6% over 65. Europe has 20%. This makes COVID a much greater threat to rich countries. Lockdowns will disrupt treatment programs for more deadly diseases, which already kill millions every year.
2/3 of all the, say, HIV, tuberculosis is in sub-Saharan Africa, and we've been battling with these diseases for years.
The other diseases that are rampant in Africa are still there.
As UNICEF, we're quite concerned about what we call the collateral impacts of the lockdown measures that are being taken across poor countries.
When they have malaria, quite a number of children go into convulsions. We have got these childhood diseases, and these need immunization, not to forget HIV/AIDS.
Lockdowns threaten economic crisis, increasing diseases of malnutrition and poverty.
We like to say that we would lay our lives down for our children, but we are in fact making the choice to shift the mortality burden from older populations in wealthier regions to younger populations in poorer regions.
Families will stop educating children, robbing them of their futures.
We implemented a geographic lockdown, geographic methods of flattening the curve rather than locking down the whole country.
Closing city and district borders could stop people moving, while keeping the flow of goods and food. Within each area, people could keep working. This would create a series of smaller waves rather than one big COVID epidemic. It would allow scarce resources of oxygen to be moved to epicenters, as well as other local measures to control local outbreaks. Computer modeling shows physical distancing of elderly people could save many lives. This is difficult in villages where several generations often share the same heart. But if communities know the threat, they can find solutions. In this village in Malawi, children are being moved out of the huts where they live with elderly. Caregivers are learning how to prepare food hygienically, and they are practicing physical distancing. People need to know who is at risk and who is not. Protecting the vulnerable requires an urgent mass education campaign to help communities find answers.
From experience of working in rural areas scaling up HIV care, one of the lessons we learned is that the answers are in the community. In Africa, the elderly, because they have lived such a long life in some communities, they're really valued people. So if the community is aware and they all agree, they will devise creative ways of social distancing.
We need to watch very carefully the epidemic as it emerges in Africa and find out local African solutions tailored to our population and our way of life.